an honor to be part of the presidential delegation representing the Biden administration, led by Second Gentleman Douglas Emhoff, to go to the inauguration of President Yoon. I think President Yoon, in his inaugural address, touched on a lot of important issues that suggest a different direction than the Moon administration. He certainly emphasized the importance of multilateral coalitions. While without specifically expressing it, I think he also emphasized the importance of finding workable solutions with the trilateral relationship with Korea, Japan, the United States. There were a lot of themes there. In private, when we met with President Yoon, we touched on that. Obviously, his inaugural day was a busy day where he was welcoming a lot of foreign dignitaries. So, I look forward, when I lead a congressional delegation to Korea in July, that we'll be able to go to further depth of a dialogue of how Congress can work with the administration and work with the General Assembly to advance some of this agenda. There's definitely a difference between how President Yoon is approaching North Korea compared to the prior administration, the Moon administration. I think President Yoon, in his inaugural address, talked about the importance of the U.S. and the Republic of Korea being on the same page here. I think that's incredibly important, working together collaboratively. I think President Yoon said dialogue is open, as President Biden has said, but the dialogue can't just be giving North Korea relief unless North Korea is making concrete steps towards denuclearization. None of us is surprised that we're seeing North Korea doing the saber rattling, doing missile tests. They generally will do that anytime a new Korean administration is coming in. But it's not helpful to North Korea. And in fact, I would argue, and this may be something that President Biden and President Yoon discuss on his visit, given what we're potentially seeing with regards to COVID in North Korea, now would be a time for North Korea to not be doing missile tests, but to be saying, we'd like to work with the United States, with the Republic of Korea. We would accept, vaccines and aid and assistance and medications. I think you would find the United States and Korea willing to help North Korea, combat COVID. I don't think that's what we're going to see out of the North Koreans, but I would hope that they would put the interests of their people first. I suspect early on in the pandemic, when the borders closed and North Korea is already a relatively isolated country, that they probably didn't have a lot of COVID cases with, the earlier variants of COVID, the Delta variant and others. But now with a variant as infectious as Omicron and the BA2 variant and some of the newer ones, it's a virus that doesn't understand borders and so forth. And much as China's experiencing increased cases, it's inevitable if they had one case of Omicron or BA2 that it would spread fairly quickly, given how contagious it is. That on top of the fact that they have, I would assume, very low vaccination rates, and perhaps I doubt they have the Pfizer or Moderna or the mRNA vaccines, which certainly have proven effective against some of these newer variants. That probably is going to lead to a rise of cases, of hospitalizations, and probably, unfortunately, a rise of deaths. Again, this would be a place where I would hope we could find common ground. I think the Yoon administration has already indicated that they would be willing to help North Korea combat the rise in COVID cases. I think the Biden administration would also, be willing to help. I would hope they would ask for assistance in combating COVID out of the humanitarian needs that they have. that's not the normal method of the North Koreans, in which case, China is in the midst of its own COVID crisis right now. So I don't know what capacity they have to focus resources on North Korea. And obviously, Russia is mired in a war in Ukraine. So again, President Yoon's indicated that the Republic of Korea is willing to help North Korea. I would hope that they would take up that assistance. The way the Biden administration's focused on global aid and around the pandemic, vaccine deliveries, et cetera, I think my opinion is that the Biden administration would be very open to it. The North Koreans don't make it easy, though, if they continue doing missile tests and acting in a provocative way. It makes it harder for Congress or the administration to offer aid to North Korea. But I would hope that the current pandemic situation in North Korea would get them to do fewer missile tests and open their door to aid from Korea and the United States and other countries that would be willing to help them address the pandemic. I don't suspect that's what will happen, unfortunately. Again, as President Yoon indicated, the door's open for dialogue. I think President Biden said the door's open for dialogue, and we should continue to be willing to engage in dialogue. But the North Koreans have to be committed to reducing, these missile tests to eventually one day perhaps get to a nuclear-free peninsula. That'll be the end point, but I think my understanding is the Yoon administration, I think the Biden administration would be open to finding some starting points. And that starting point might be allowing us to provide help and aid around the pandemic.